What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Clapback Culture. I am your co-host, Julia Jessie, and I am alongside my homeboy, Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald. What's up, Mike?
Hey, what's up, Julia?
Man, we're back at it. Another Thursday coming to the people with so much content. So listen, our show is not too long tonight. We're on early. We are back on regular schedule next week, but we might as well just jump right into these headlines. Mike, what do you think?
I think let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So look, we're going to be talking a little bit about that Boulder shooting, of course, super tragic accident there. We're going to be chopping it up about Meghan McCain on the identity politics scenario and really whether or not people have the right job qualifications. Cuomo and a new scandal, the fourth one this year. We got to chop it up about that. And of course, what the hell and who the hell is Derek Jackson? And all the cheating scandals. I'm glad you are. Me too. And of course, we're going to talk about Asian lawmakers and a little bit about what happened with two senators who said that they would not support Biden's vote for cabinet, but then kind of backtrack. So we'll chop it up a little bit about that. And of course, President Biden had a press conference today. We do have a little bit of a clip there. If we have enough time, we'll chop it up. So we might as well get right into it. Of course, we know there was a tragic shooting this week in the Boulder shooting. We do have a quick clip and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, is also in Boulder with the latest on the investigation and what we are learning about how the attack happened. David, good morning.
Good morning. The Associated Press reports that the suspect's family told police they think he's mentally ill, suffering from some type of delusion. He thought he was being followed or chased, and that a relative of the gunman also told police that she thinks she saw him playing with what looked like a machine gun just a couple of days before the massacre started here at the supermarket behind me.
People lying in the street, guys.
The shooting started in the parking lot, where, according to the arrest warrant, the suspect shot an elderly man multiple times.
He's inside the building right now.
The suspect then allegedly made his way inside, wearing tactical gear and armed with a semi-automatic handgun and a rifle, and he started firing on employees and customers.
And my coworker looked at me, and I looked at him, and he says, "That's not breaking glass, that's an AR-15. I just saw the dude hit the floor."
Daniel, who did not want to share his last name, was shopping with his coworker.
I started shooting in the store, and we started running through the store telling everybody to follow us.
The entire building is surrounded.
Nearly 50 minutes after the massacre began, an officer arrested the suspect, who was wearing only shorts after he had apparently removed his clothing inside the store.
Officers arrived on the scene within minutes and immediately entered the store and engaged the suspect.
According to the warrant, the suspect, Ahmed Al-Issa, bought an assault weapon less than a week before the shooting. He purchased it on March 16th. The 21-year-old was born in Syria, but he grew up in the United States. His brother told the Daily Beast he believes Al-Issa is mentally ill. He described him as paranoid and antisocial, and he says he was bullied in high school. Now, police records indicate when he was in high school back in 2018, Al-Issa was convicted of misdemeanor assault after he punched another student several times during math class. According to an incident report, Al-Issa claimed that he had been bullied by the student for about a year. But more than 24 witnesses in the class told investigators that the attack appeared unprovoked. As of this morning, officials here in Boulder have not yet released a motive behind the supermarket massacre.
We are going to do everything in our power to make sure this suspect has a thorough trial, and we do a thorough investigation.
Now, this is interesting. Roughly 4 years ago, the city of Boulder passed a ban on assault weapons. The intention was they wanted to stop exactly what happened here at the grocery store. But just 10 days ago, a court ruled that the ban was ineffective, right? They overruled Boulder's ban because the NRA filed a lawsuit. And the NRA argued that Colorado has a state law which says local cities like Boulder cannot pass their own gun laws. And the NRA won.
Mike David, what we're seeing is that Biden and the Democrats are, really calling for stricter gun control laws after this. What is your take on such yet again, another tragic shooting, another mass shooting where people are using assault weapons?
I mean, I wish that some of those stricter laws would actually come to be, you know, and hearing at the end of the clip the way that there was a law, and then of course, who else but the NRA comes in, fights it, law's gone, and then boom, this happens. I mean, this is the reason why we need those stricter laws. It's like, I mean, it's too easy to get the gun. And I understand, you know, I hear the mental health stuff that they're talking about, but it's just it's really hard to take that into consideration when you look at he just bought the gun. Like he just bought it. And it feels like the gun was purchased to do this. And I mean, my heart just goes out to all of those people. I see people in the comments that had been to that store. I mean, it's just a tragedy all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, it raises such an eyebrow, right? You know, I was watching a couple of commentators talk about the issue of universal background checks and how there is a little bit of criticism as it relates to the background checks in health and mental health concerns with people, and really thinking that that is going to stigmatize people. So I bring it to our audience to ask, you know, what do you guys think about that being you know, kind of one of the metrics that we use to ban gun ownership? To me personally, or go ahead, Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I was just gonna say, you know, I was also listening to some conversations around this as well, and somebody brought up a really good point, and I can't remember who this person is, or I will credit them. But what they said about the background checks was that all too often the people that you see carrying out these mass shootings, they don't usually have criminal histories. So making the background checks stricter, that's just going to target the people who end up in the criminal justice system early. And disproportionately, that's going to be Black people. But when you look at a lot of the shootings, these are people that don't have these histories. So a stricter background check isn't really going to stop this. If you really want to stop this, you have to get those assault rifles off the streets. That's what we really need to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, and someone could make the argument that, you know, mass shootings often occur where people are using handguns. So, me personally, the way that I'm kind of looking at it is we need to really have a new conversation about the use of guns here in the United States. I mean, America is pro guns. We affirm gun ownership in this country, and people don't want to lose that right. And I understand that. But at the same time, if we are losing hundreds and thousands of people every year, why do we need guns to protect ourselves? I mean, there's countries all over the world where people are able to defend themselves, protect themselves, and they don't need weapons to do so. And so I'm not anti-guns, but I'm also not pro-guns. And so you know, we really need to just do more to take some common sense steps to really figuring out how we can rectify this issue.
You're so right with the common sense steps, because to be honest, I'm very pro gun. I'm a gun owner myself. But if the choice was to give up guns so that we could be safer, I'm all for that, you know?
Right.
So I think it really is a common sense issue. And at some point, I mean, man, there's so much focus right now from people trying to make it hard for people to vote. Like that's we're going to restrict the hell out of voting. But when it comes to assault rifles, it's just like, we just want to give them away. And it makes no sense, especially how, you know, a guy shouldn't be able to buy a gun 6 days ago and then be somewhere shooting up a grocery store this fast. Maybe there could be a wider gap. I mean, there's so many different ways that they could look at this. They just have to care.
We need to, you know, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think to kind of put a bow on this for the moment is to really have a discussion about, you know, using weapons responsibly, what they're used for, and having responsible gun ownership. You know, I really think about a time where, you know, kids were taught how to use guns. You know, and this article alleges that the brother, you know, talked about the shooter having some mental health issues there. And so we really need to think about people having these wraparound services. You know, are people responsible enough to be a gun owner? Does it matter whether or not they had a criminal record? Yes or no? Does it matter if they had a domestic violence charge? Probably, absolutely. Does it matter, you know, if they, you know, are diagnosed with, depression or, some other mental health concern. And so while I don't want people to be stigmatized for, maybe a mental health diagnosis, I think we do need to come up with a new way to protect the safety of Americans.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, Meghan McCain, the View's co-host, is once again under fire when a conversation about Asian American representation in Joe Biden's cabinet turned personal. Meghan McCain used the opportunity to express her fears on the show about identity politics. That's something we've heard about a lot. So maybe this could leave her without a job. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Cabinet positions in government are pinnacle. They're the most important parts of our electoral process. And I truly believe the most qualified people should be holding, places that do things like national security and infrastructure, things that literally are the meat and potatoes that make the country great. I believe that what makes America exceptional is the fact that we're a meritocracy, that you can be anything, that you can come from anywhere and go and have success in any capacity. And I think the question Democrats have to reconcile with right now is whether or not race and gender are more important than qualification. So if you have someone who is more qualified, who happens to be a white, straight person, who is more on paper, has more experience in whatever field that they're being nominated for, than a minority with less experience, are we now in a place where this matters? And there's a lot of really interesting politics going on in the country right now. And I'm going to give just two really quick examples. One is Harvard University and Ivy Leagues are actually being sued right now for not letting Asian American students in at the same rate that they are letting black students in, because they are not being considered by Ivy League students in the same vein as minorities, as any other minority is. Another example is in the recent stimulus package, money was given to minority farmers, but that excluded women farmers. And so we're going to a place where even if people need money, even if people are qualified to get into Ivy Leagues, race and gender is more important than your skill qualifications, the content of your character. It is not what Martin Luther King Jr. preached. I think this is a very, very slippery slope. I was very surprised to hear someone like Tammy Duckworth say something like this. She got a lot of blowback from a lot of people, not just on the right. And I think this is actually just the natural progression of identity politics. And I will say, just to put a cap on this, The View is 25 years old next year. We've only had one Asian American co-host this show. So does that mean that one of us should be leaving at some point because there's not enough representation? We're talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications of a job? And I think that's a question going forward that the progressive left is going to have to reconcile.
Meghan McCain, when did you wake up a minority woman? Like, when did that happen? Mike Davis, thoughts?
It almost leaves me speechless sometimes hearing. I mean, Martin Luther King, did she really go to Martin Luther? Listen, so to be clear, we're going to talk about Duckworth later. We're going to have that conversation. But here in this conversation, it's just, it always strikes me a weird way to hear these rich, affluent white people. I mean, when you look at Meghan McCain, her dad, John McCain, her mom is a businesswoman. She comes from all of this money. It's like, yeah, of course it feels like a meritocracy to you. Right. You're rich and you're white and you've always been rich and white and you've always had access. But when we're talking about inclusion of people from marginalized communities, whatever that may be, we're talking about people that didn't grow up with the access that you had. We're talking about the people who can't make a phone call from mommy or daddy to just get them access to whatever they want. These are the people that always get left out. And when people make that argument, first of all, I mean, why do you assume that having people that are black or brown automatically means that these people are less qualified? I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of people who were qualified to work on The View who just didn't have access to make those phone calls to get themselves there. So I hate the idea of rich white folks always trying to talk about the meritocracy, this and that. And there's something that they always ignore, and that's racism. And that's the fact that no matter how qualified some of these black and brown people may be, sometimes all we ever see is doors being shut in our face. So I just, that was a lot.
That was a lot. You took the words out my mouth, Mike Davis, literally and figuratively, right? My aunt who's watching the show right now, she always calls this the browning of America, and white people are always worried. This is their, and not all white folks, because we know y'all on here with us, but there are some white folks that are worried about the browning of America, and Meghan McCain falls in that category. Why does Meghan McCain, you see increasing diversity as increasing unqualified candidates? Why are those two things correlating with each other? And the irony in all of this, like you pointed out, Mike Davis, is that she is known. Her whole thing is known as being the daughter of the late and great former senator and former presidential nominee John McCain. Like, it's almost as if she's thinking that her media career is somehow stapled in her merits, and not that she came in on the back of her father's name. I mean, it's ridiculous. So Meghan McCain, to me, she seems defensive and all of this. You know, I actually am a fan of hers on the show because I do feel like she brings a little bit of balance. And oftentimes she does present a narrative of Republicans that I think needs to be brought to the forefront. And she helps me kind of understand issues. So this is not, I think, a full attack on her character. However, Mike Davis, this is coming off the back of the fact that she just issued an apology. Literally like 2 days ago, basically, condemning the reprehensible violence and vitriol that has been targeted towards the Asian American community, and went on to condemn that Donald Trump really amplified the racist rhetoric and fueled the attacks on Asian American people here in this country, for calling it the China virus, which she also did on the show plenty of times. So I don't know, Mike Davis, Meghan McCain. I mean, do you feel like someone's coming for your job, sis? Because basically what's happening is it's being allegedly reported in the dailybeast.com, honey, that you got hella calls that specifically called for her to be replaced by an Asian co-host. So maybe she's coming.
Maybe she is feeling triggered. And look, to be honest, I don't even mind the conservative voice. I mean, I probably watch more Fox News than any other news. I need to hear both sides so that it just makes me feel more well-rounded. So that's not even the problem. Don't be bringing Martin Luther King into this, man. I really don't like when white folks try to bring in Martin Luther King and then argue something that he would have never argued for. Right? Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of old school. Like, what would Dr. King say? Like, what would Jesus do? It's just like, all right, listen, we're moving on. We're moving on, guys. We're moving on. Another person who's back in the hot seat, our boy Cuomo. Governor Cuomo of New York is facing a new controversy, reportedly giving access to COVID-19 tests to his inner circle at the height of the pandemic. Let's go ahead and run it.
This morning, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo facing a new scandal, reportedly giving members of his inner circle access to hard-to-come-by COVID tests when the state was at the epicenter of the pandemic early on. The Times-Union of Albany says, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of the situation, Cuomo directed top health officials to prioritize people with close ties to his administration and family members, including his mother and his younger brother, Chris Cuomo, an anchor for CNN. In the early days of the pandemic, the governor frequently appeared on his brother's show.
This is the normal swab. This was the actual swab that was being used to fit up that double-barrel shotgun that you have mounted on the front of your pretty face.
See, I said I was going to be nice and sweet.
Chris, who tested positive for coronavirus last March, is not commenting, but CNN released a statement that reads in part, "When Chris was showing symptoms and was concerned about possible spread, he turned to anyone he could for advice and assistance, as any human being would." The Washington Post, citing 2 sources, says employees at Wadsworth Center, the state's lab in Albany, would work overtime to process the results of those close to the governor.
It is so fast and so easy that even a governor can take this test.
Last May, the governor seen taking a COVID test during one of his daily briefings as a way to encourage the public. The Cuomo team also released a statement saying in part, "In the early days of the pandemic, when there was a heavy emphasis on contact tracing, we were absolutely going above and beyond to get people testing, including in some instances going to people's homes. Among those we assisted were members of the general public, including legislators, reporters, state workers, and their families who feared they had contracted the virus and had the capability to further spread it." The fallout comes amid mounting pressure on the governor to resign after several women came forward alleging sexual harassment, which Cuomo has denied. This could mean further legal trouble for the governor in the state of New York. It's illegal for officials to receive or provide special privileges.
Boo, corny and far-reaching. Like, first of all, this has absolutely nothing to do with him prioritizing COVID tests to his inner circle. And furthermore, who cares? Like, at the beginning of the pandemic, he wanted to make sure his mama got a test. So what? I mean, to me, I feel like that comes with being the governor. Okay, like, can I just back up a little bit and just say I'm really disappointed to see Cuomo going through all of this. I really liked him. I really liked seeing Chris and Andrew go back and forth on CNN at the beginning in those early days of the pandemic. And it's sad to see that all of this basically is coming because of the sexual harassment allegations, the inappropriate touching, cultivating a toxic work environment, and the underreporting of COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. So I think this has absolutely nothing to do with him prioritizing COVID tests, but Andrew.
We're in sync tonight because you just took the words out of my mouth. This has nothing to do with that. He's the governor. Of course, his fam is going to be able to slide through and get the extra. That is what it is. This is about all those women coming out. He hasn't resigned yet. They're going to lean on him as hard as they possibly can to get him out of here. And the cool thing too is that, like, personally, I didn't, really have a strong opinion about him. I mean, I knew his brother more because his brother was on the news, but I got people in New York and they loved this guy a year ago. Like a year ago, the way they talked about him versus what it's looking like now, it's like, man, that happened fast.
Yeah, and I believe it's being reported that he's up to 8 women who came out with sexual harassment allegations. So
it's one thing when it's he said, she said, but when it turns into he said, she said, she said, she said, she said, yeah.
Speaking of which, when we come back from break, we're going to talk about Derek Jackson, the memes that have been exposed all over social media. You probably don't know who he is, but when we come back, we're going to chop it up and I'm going to tell you all about it. Hang in there.
Community Voices returns for 2021 with 2 very special episodes that examine the shifting demographics and cultures of Seattle. Converge Media proudly presents Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. This is a 2-part special that examines 4 Seattle neighborhoods: the Central District, Chinatown International District, the University District, and Ballard, all Seattle neighborhoods that have experienced great change and displacement due to gentrification, rising rents, and development, as well as found creative ways to stay rooted and resilient. Also, all neighborhoods that have a long and proud history, culture, and traditions that combined help shape the face of the Emerald City as we know it today. The Community Voices episodes will include films plus discussions with local small business owners and community members. These are 2 powerful live episodes that you will not want to miss. So make sure and save the date, March 18th and March 25th at 7 p.m. across all Converge media platforms. Presented by the City of Seattle Department of Neighborhoods and Vanishing Seattle.
What's up? What's up? We are back. Welcome to Clapback Culture. Vanishing Seattle has booted us out of our spot, but welcome, rightfully so. We hope you guys tune in. It's going to come on immediately after this, I believe. All you're correct.
It's going to be a good show too. Y'all should definitely
tune
in.
And it's part 2. So I'm looking forward. I'm definitely going to be tuning in after this. But Mike Davis, you're in the hot seat because you're a black man and black men don't cheat, correct?
Very correct. Very, very correct.
Look, y'all, I know this story has been going crazy viral on social media. And oftentimes we stick to news and politics and a little bit, stories with more substance. However, I could not help myself but to go down the rabbit hole of Derek Jackson. So I think we got a quick overlay. We're going to go ahead and throw that overlay up for me all yet. Derek Jackson is a self-proclaimed relationship guru who was exposed for serial cheating on his wife. Social media basically blew up this week after he was exposed, after fans uncovered his indiscretions. Derek Jackson is a clown, and he preaches and wrote a book on healing and healthy relationships. He took to Instagram this morning to confess in a video in which his wife, Mrs. Jackson, sat alongside of him, very awkward and cringeworthy, in a 30-minute video, a live chat where they went back and forth with their audience. Now, what makes this story unique? Because anybody can cheat on their wife and come out and say, hey, I cheated on my wife. What makes this story even relevant is the fact that this guy has 1.3 million followers, over 600 subs on YouTube, for building a platform on the fact that people should not cheat and people should not stay with their cheating spouse. His whole demographic is basically pandering to single women, telling them that if you catch your man cheating, please believe he didn't cheat just once. This is the first time you caught him. So his entire social media, like his entire gram account, like please pull up to @Derek Jackson, and Jackson with a JAXN at that. How corny. Like,
hey, you have to too. And I see my guy Darnell in the chat saying it was staged. I thought that too when it first came across.
I did too.
And then I started looking and going down the rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh, bruh, it's serious. Like, that was.
Listen, this guy, listen, Darnell, you're right. I think to your point, a part of this, it's not staged, but I think he did a spin. So
yeah,
this guy, he brings his wife. You guys have to go ahead and go down the rabbit hole. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because I'm going to do a deep dive with my homegirl, Besa Gordon, on the Rewind on Saturday. So make sure you guys tune in on the Rewind this Saturday. It's crazy. This guy does a video. He brings his wife. Social media is going crazy. His wife is doing a bunch of additional videos thereafter on her Instagram. I mean, it is trauma. It is abuse. There is some psychological warfare going on. And if cancel culture wants to cancel anybody, please cancel Derek Jackson.
I'll say one thing before we go.
Absolutely.
I know that this is these people's lives, and I'm literally laughing at their lives. It was hilarious to me. But so he made the video with his wife just sitting there. It was the most awkward thing I've ever seen in my life.
So awkward.
She made her video on her own, calling her bonnet like a helmet of salvation or something even crazy. Then this guy made a final video where he was doing analysis on his first video, talking about himself in the third person, using the cheating that he. Oh man, y'all got to see this. It's entertainment. It was very entertaining. I'm sure his numbers are probably going to be through the roof now because it's so ridiculous.
Listen, I hope people go unfollow and unsubscribe to his channel. This guy needs to be banned. It's really this. Call your bank. This is fraud. Like, get your money back, y'all. Like, this.
Don't take advice from a relationship guru.
A self-proclaimed relationship guru. Here's my biggest issue with this, Mike Davis. I don't care. You know, people are giving the wife crap that she's like, I'm going to stand by my man. Listen, sis, I don't care if you stand by your man. I don't. Do your thing. Y'all do your thing. The fact that you guys have brought this to a public platform in front of millions, at this point, 6 million views on that video, on the video with them together, you guys. These people are literally, I don't want to say they're nobodies because I don't know them, but they're nobodies, right? But people have invested time and money, and he has built his entire platform to really, I don't want to cuss. Use your words, Julia. To discriminate and go in on so many people, so many celebrities. Charlemagne the God. He went on his podcast. Like, he went on so many celebrities, so many Black celebrities at that, and tore them down. But you know what? You know who's always an expert in cheating? A cheater themselves, Mike Davis.
That's very true.
Yeah, so really, I mean, he's an expert, right? Like
he was qualified. Technically, he was qualified to. Okay.
You know what? I think it's super funny that he did a reaction video to his own video.
That was hilarious.
Like, you are the quintessential narcissist to talk about yourself in third person. In fact, he talked about himself in third person immediately in the video. Hey guys, he said Derek Jackson confesses to cheating on his wife. Right, you are Derek Jackson.
What are you doing?
The disassociation is just so crazy. Ayanla,
and he took his own side. At that, like he was on
so crazy
his side.
Listen, you guys,
the Matrix.
There's no way I can even listen. I've been sending these videos out to my friends and family, and I'm like, can you watch and give me your feedback? Am I being too critical? So listen, go down the rabbit hole. It is worth it. It is worth it. If you just want to spill a little tea, sip a little tea, this is one to sip. And, you know, I'm not playing
on our lives.
Listen, we're going to pray for them. We're going to pray for Danae Jackson. She got her breastplate of Jesus. She's covered in the blood of the Lamb. Lord have mercy. She didn't. Listen, it's a lot going on. I'm about to pick up the phone and call Ayanla Van Zant. I know her show's getting ready to go out the last season, but sis, we need you. We need you to unpack this and uncover this. Mike Davis, did you know that a third mistress came out?
You're not kidding me.
Make it stop. It's a mess.
Hey, real fast though. What time are you in Besa Saturday?
Don't quote me on that. I'll make sure we have it before the end of the show. I believe it is at. Don't quote me because I'm not. I don't remember. I don't remember.
We're gonna find out for y'all.
Yeah. Hopefully someone can throw it in the comments. Amari, if you're watching, what time does Base's show come on? I know I'm coming on Saturday. It was something we just chopped it up about. But definitely, you know, you might want to pull into the comments, Mike Davis. We want to know what you can talk about.
I would definitely be in the comments for that.
Look, I'm glad that this story just came to the forefront. It's just, you know, sometimes on this show, we got to have a little bit about entertainment, y'all. It can't all be about shootings and politics. Sometimes we got to talk about these trending topics. And I had no idea who this fool was until social media blew up. And guess what? Here on Clapback Culture, we going to talk about it. So look, Mike Davis, you have, you want to talk about Senator Duckworth and in her comments about, give me 1 second, where are my notes? All right, you guys, we're going to switch gears real quick. 2 Democratic senators dropped their threat to block President Joe Biden's nominees after the White House agreed to add a senior level Asian American Pacific Islander advisor amid concerns the community is underrepresented in the administration. Let's go ahead and watch.
2 Asian American Democratic senators are actually backing off their threat not to confirm President Biden's future nominees. That's after Senators Duckworth and Hirono said just in the last 24 hours or so that they would withhold votes to confirm any non-diversity candidates.
There's no AAPI representation in the cabinet. There's not a single AAPI in the cabinet position. Going up? That's not acceptable. That's what I told the White House.
This is not about pitting one diversity group against another. I think this is a well-articulated, focused position, and I am prepared to join her in that.
Let me bring in NBC News national political reporter Sahil Kapoor. So, Sahil, talk about the reason why these senators are backing off now this morning, those objections we just heard, and the conflict this had created with the White House.
A quick reversal indeed, Hallie, and it came after the White House had moved rapidly to diffuse the situation, essentially contacting these 2 Democratic senators and giving them a couple of assurances. First, broadly, that it would do more to elevate Asian American voices in the administration, and second, specifically, it would appoint a liaison to the Asian American community to make sure their concerns were addressed. Now, these assurances were enough for Senator Duckworth and Senator Hirono to stand down on their threat and to say they will continue to confirm President Biden's nominees. We can put their statements up on the screen if we have them. I am told this was a product of frustration that had been simmering underneath the surface for months, dating all the way back to the campaign, about a lack of Asian American representation within the Biden campaign. And it all kind of blew up yesterday when Senator Duckworth was speaking to reporters. Broadly, the context here is key. Asian Americans are the fastest growing demographic group in the country. And what we're seeing here is a growing effort by leaders of that community to demand a seat at the table and representation at the highest levels, as other groups in this country have successfully done. I would expect to see a lot more of it going forward, Hallie.
Well, Mike Davis, thoughts, comments, concerns, feedback?
I mean, honestly, when I first seen this, I loved it. I mean, take a stand. Like, you're looking at the cabinet, you don't see nobody that represents your interests. Take that stand. So I'm all for it. And look, I'm always going to stand with folks that are standing up for themselves. So you want more representation? Call for it. It's not like there's no qualified Asian Americans who can be on this cabinet. I'm sure that there are plenty. And I don't know if it was an oversight on Biden's part or what, but they took that stand. And I mean, I supported that 100%.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more, in fact. And, Senator Duckworth basically came out that, through a spokesperson, that she received, the reassurance that she needed from the White House that Biden would go ahead and elevate more Asian American Pacific Islander voices. So I'm with you. I think, if you need representation, you got to, unfortunately, as minorities, we have to call for it. And, to go back to the story with Meghan McCain a little bit, it basically goes to show you that people feel threatened by diversity. And, for far too long, there's been a lack of representation in communities of color. And we are at the point where people are demanding it and demanding change. And I really love that we have a White House, that we have an administration at this point that is clearing this up in less than 24 hours. And they're like, oh, okay, you don't want to support it because there's not enough representation? Cool, we're going to go ahead and fix that. And let's go ahead and get on this call and have a conversation about what your needs are and have a seat at the table. And so I think if we had have saw this during the Trump administration, it wouldn't have been such a gracious conversation. So Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that the White House will add a senior level Asian American Pacific Islander liaison who will ensure the community's voice is further represented and heard, end quote. Right now, we need this more than ever, specifically coming off the Atlanta shooting, specifically coming off the stigmatization of COVID-19 and Asian Americans, period, right? And so people are actually being attacked, harassed, threatened, and they need a seat at the table. In fact, she was, Meghan McCain was talking about The View only had one, in 25 years, only had one Asian American co-host who was Lisa Ling, you know what I'm saying? And that was back in 1999. And she didn't stay long. She left in 2002. So there's room for everybody, right? It doesn't have to be this, because we want Black people, there is no white people. Because there is, Asian Pacific Islanders, there is no, Indian or Dominican or Samoan or Tongan. Like, there can be people of all walks of life that can come and have a seat at the table. And guess what? It's going to be a better conversation for sure. And
I agree.
I'm happy to see it. And I'm happy that that this conversation was had. I'm glad that they put their foot down. It's, the time is now.
Especially on this level. Like, because Meghan McCain spoke about the significance of those cabinet level positions. We know how significant they are. And if they're going to represent the people, then they need to represent the people. And it can't just be a room full of white people. It can't just be a room full of, select, like, open that up. We have, there's so many brilliant people that we have in this country who just need a chance. You let them come in. I mean, so, and I got to stand on this again. It doesn't mean that we're trying to let in people who are not, quote unquote, qualified. That's not what this is at all. This means actually opening it up and letting everyone who is qualified have a chance at some of these positions.
Absolutely. And I think I was the first person to talk about when we first started covering Joe Biden's cabinet. I don't know if it was on air or even maybe it was a conversation we had offline, but I think I was one to bug back and say, I don't think everybody should be a person of color. I think we need representation from everyone. Like, I also am, growing up in Seattle, I feel like it's a privilege that I went to school with people who look different than me. And that was important moving forward in life. You do need to know how to communicate with white people. You do need to know how to communicate with people from the Latino community. You do need to know how to communicate with people from the Asian community. I'm a person who knows, like, I can look at you and be like, I can tell if you're Vietnamese, Chinese, from Thailand. Whereas, some of my counterparts here on the East Coast think everybody's Chinese. And so it's such a privilege and an honor to be able to know, I grew up with my Vietnamese homegirl, Jacqueline Duong, and I used to go to her house and her mom used to cook us pho, like, as kids. So to grow up with diversity and inclusion is so great. And it does so much for everybody. You know how to interact and you have so much more respect and cultural competency moving forward in life. And I think it's just better to have a seat and room for everybody at the table because everybody can eat.
Yeah.
Everybody can eat. So
and you miss things, like if you don't have that representation, it's so easy to overlook things that are important to people or overlook things that may not have occurred to you. So you need those voices. It makes it better. It makes it stronger. So
absolutely.
Shout out to them for taking that stand, for real.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad that we had that incorporated into the show, for real. Do we need to take a quick break? Yes, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to quickly talk about Joe Biden's news conference, the first one of this year. Let's go ahead and take a quick break.
Community Voices returns for 2021 with 2 very special episodes that examine the shifting demographics and cultures of Seattle. Converge Media proudly presents Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. This is a 2-part special that examines 4 Seattle neighborhoods: the Central District, Chinatown International District, the University District, and Ballard, all Seattle neighborhoods that have experienced great change and displacement due to gentrification, rising rents, and development, as well as found creative ways to stay rooted and resilient. Also, all neighborhoods that have a long and proud history, culture, and traditions that combined help shape the face of the Emerald City as we know it today. The Community Voices episodes will include films plus discussions with local small business owners and community members. These are 2 powerful live episodes that you will not want to miss. So make sure and save the date, March 18th and March 25th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms. Presented by the City of Seattle Department of Neighborhoods and Vanishing Seattle.
Welcome back, y'all. So we don't have a lot of time, but Joe Biden did have his press conference today. So we want to run a clip. We might talk a little bit about it, but next week for sure, we'll dive in and we'll get into some of the specifics. So can we start off with that clip, please?
December 8th, I indicated that I hope to get 100 million shots in people's arms in my first 100 days. We met that goal last week by day 58, 42 days ahead of schedule. Now today I'm setting a second goal, and that is we will, by my 100th day in office, have administered 200 million shots in people's arms. Those who are coming across the border who are unaccompanied children, we're moving rapidly to try to put in place what was dismantled, as I said. For example, of all the children who are coming across the border, over 70% are either 16 or 17 years old. We're not talking about people ripping babies from mother's arms or little 3-year-olds standing on the border. Less than, I think it's 1.5% fall in the category of the very young. The idea that I'm going to say, which I would never do, that if an unaccompanied child ends up at the border, we're just going to let them starve to death and stay on the other side. No previous administration did that either, except Trump. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Deciding that you're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work. Deciding that there will be no absentee ballots under the most rigid circumstances. It's all designed, and I'm going to spend my time doing 3 things. One, trying to figure out how to pass the legislation passed by the House, number one. Number two, educating the American public. The Republican voters I know find this despicable. Republican voters, the folks outside this White House. I'm not talking about the elected officials. I'm talking about voters.
Have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him. No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation. No American president ever backed down from speaking out of what's happening to the Uyghurs, what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in country. That's who we are. The moment a president walks away from that, as the last one did, is the moment we begin to lose our legitimacy around the world. It's who we are. So I see stiff competition with China. China has an overall goal, and I don't criticize them for the goal, but they have an overall goal to become the leading country in the world, the wealthiest country in the world, and the most powerful country in the world. That's not going to happen on my watch.
Mike Davis, such a long press conference today. I mean, it was so much information to digest. I'm glad that he had it, and he addressed a lot of, concerns that people had. What are your thoughts?
He touched on everything. And y'all know how I can get, but I'm not even going to blast him right now. What I will say is we're going to talk about this next week. So everybody that's out there, understand, give us some time. We're going to go through this. We're going to get our notes together. We're going to come back next week because this, it literally happened today. But I did like that, he took all questions. He touched on everything. I mean, he talked immigration. He talked foreign policy. He talked on the voter stuff. I mean, he talked on so much. So it was great to hear him say it. It was refreshing. I actually felt like, he was kind of sincere in his answers, whether I agree or disagree with what he said. I think that he's saying stuff that he believes in and that he's actually informed on. And that is a change of pace for us in our country right now. So overall, right now, I think he did pretty good. And, I'm eager to talk about this next week.
Absolutely. I think we are seeing, empathy rolled out right in front of us, where he talked about, the young child, I believe from Honduras, walking, the mother sending her child to walk over to the United States. And, because Joe Biden is a nice guy and you're really sending your kid over for what you believe to be a better opportunity, that just shows the level of desperation and what are we going to do? Because people still look at it at America like the American dream, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Like, there's so many people that come to this country seeking opportunity, and who are we to say that they shouldn't be, allowed that type of access? So again, so much went into this press hearing. I hope you guys go back, watch the tape. It's all over YouTube. It's a lot to digest. We will break it down, come back and chop it up about it next week for sure. And have some thoughts about it. I'm sure Mike Davis won't be as nice to President Joe Biden when we come back and dig a little deeper on that. But tonight, you guys, it has been a good show. We're going to wrap up a little bit early because we want to make room for Vanishing Seattle coming on shortly after this. And make sure, please come check out Besa's show, The Rewind with Besa at 2 p.m. this Saturday. I'm going to pull up and do a small guest appearance so I can talk a little bit more trash about the clown that is Derek Jackson.
Hey, I'll be in the comments with y'all. So if you pull up, man, we can have some fun together.
For sure. Mike Davis, where can they find you on social media? Where, how can they keep up with you after this?
As always, South Seattle Emerald, SouthSeattleEmerald.com. Everywhere you find the Emerald, you will find your boy. You can also find me on Twitter at Real M Davis.
That's perfect. And you guys know where to find me on Instagram and Twitter at Treasure of JULES. And of course, on all Converge platforms where we converge. And make sure next week, you guys, we're coming back our normal time at, look, what is our normal time again? 7 p.m. Pacific Standard
Look,
Time.
it's still light outside right now. I'm going for a walk. This is cool.
I'm in the basement. So listen, I'm probably going to do some laundry. But look, you guys, make sure you come back just real shortly to see Vanishing Seattle. So much to learn about that topic. And we will be back here, regular time, same place, next week, Thursday. It's Clapback Culture. Peace.